Hello everyone, it's Brenda, and this is the Healing Power of Story. In today's video, I want to look at this question of what is a memoir, what is an autobiography, and are they the same thing? If you saw my previous video, you'll know that I've already said that they aren't the same thing, that they are different. And they differ in a few ways. One is they differ in their content, they differ in their structure, and they differ in their purpose. But before we get to looking at those differences, let's look at the similarity, which is why they get confused. And the similarities are these, that they're about you and that they're about your life. But how you express yourself, how you talk about yourself, differs in an autobiography versus a memoir. So let's go back and look at that. In an autobiography, you're going to find that the structure is very chronological. It will start from the day you're born. It will work through who your parents were, where they were living when you were born, who your grandparents are, where you went to school, who your friends were, what you studied, when you had your first kiss, where you went to university or college or didn't, or whatever your story is, who you married, where you lived, all those things, who your friends were. There's just so much that gets added to the autobiography. It really is like a historical narrative, which is essentially its purpose. It's a historical narrative, and it's a great option if you're wanting to leave some sort of historical legacy for your family. And the other thing with a memoir then, on the other hand, is that it's not chronological. Essentially, it is about a piece of your life, something that you're wanting to convey or share with the reader for a purpose that's actually of benefit to the reader. So it may be a theme about your life, it may be a belief, it may be some awakening you've had that you want to share with the reader. In my previous video, I actually used Tara Westover's memoir, Educated, to explain this and to explain how she wrote her story based on the theme of being educated. Now, there's another really popular memoir out at the moment that actually is presented as a memoir, but is actually essentially an autobiography. It's not really a memoir, not based on what I've read about it so far, and I'm into chapter 9 of its 24 chapters. So stick around and I'll tell you which is this memoir, and I'll actually use it to illustrate this point of memoir versus autobiography. Okay, so back to memoir. It's a snippet of your life to convey a theme, to convey a story, a belief that's actually of value to the reader. And that's where autobiography differs. Autobiography isn't necessarily of great value to the reader unless they're family or somebody who wants to know your history because you're actually perhaps a famous person. And that's where autobiography actually is about you. It's all about you so that there's a historical account of what happened. And it's not about the reader per se. So that's another area where they differ. And so therefore we've got the purpose that differs, and then the structure. Because the purpose and the structure are linked, they are going to be different. As I mentioned, the autobiography is more a historical account and a narrative that will take you through your life story. Whereas memoir, and I mentioned this in my previous video, memoir is really fluid. There are so many ways in which you can write a memoir, so many ways in which you can present a memoir, depending on what you're wanting to convey, how you want to convey it, and who your readership actually is. And so that's another video altogether. Whereas autobiography is actually quite standard and static in how it gets presented. So now here is this book that I want to use to illustrate the differences between the two. Perhaps you've already read it, or perhaps you want to read it, but it's Becoming by Michelle Obama. This book is presented as a memoir, but it actually has all the trappings of an autobiography. And this is where I'll tell you why. When I started to read this book, I actually read her preface and I loved it. It is all memoir. It tells about her starting to introduce her book of being now out of the White House and living in her first home post-White House. And actually it's very engaging, very warm, very much drawing me in. And then when I started to actually read the memoir, it's all autobiography. It really is. It starts with where she was born, who her parents were, where she went to school, who her grandparents were, how they lived, and her whole story just proceeds along that trajectory. So I'm at the point now where she's actually met Barack Obama. They are not yet married, but I'm sure they're going to get married quite soon. She's a lawyer, he's a lawyer, and it's starting to get to the point where she's going to carry on with the trajectory of getting married, having children, deciding to move into politics, becoming the First Lady of the USA. I suspect we're going to read all about how the primaries ran and things like that, which I'm actually not looking forward to. But that is essentially the structure of an autobiography. It is not the structure of a memoir. If you want to read the structure of a memoir, you can read Educated by Tara Westover. She also follows the trajectory of growing up, but she doesn't keep all that detail in. Michelle Obama is famous, so she's actually written a historical narrative, and it's presented as a memoir, so that people in future will have all the facts about her. Whereas that is not the purpose of a memoir. A memoir can follow your life. You can start like Tara Westover did in Educated, where you actually start from being young and grow through. But that's just the form that she chose to write with. It's not how it needs to be. So we'll talk more about this, but that's essentially the difference between an autobiography and a memoir. Okay? Autobiography is very much static. It's a particular form. It's a historical narrative. It's more about the person, which is why it lends itself very well to Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, because it's more about her than it is about me, the reader, actually gleaning something. I just get to know more about her. Whereas a memoir is about the reader and wanting to convey to the reader something that is of value. Okay, so we'll look more into this a bit as we go along. If you're wanting to know what actually makes up key ingredients of a memoir, there's so much more to unpack. Feel free to download my free ebook. It's called The 7 Key Ingredients to Writing a Great Memoir, and I've got it linked below. That will help to get you started. There are exercises and things like that in there. And if you're wanting to hear about my actual review of this memoir, I've given you a mini review of it, but I'll give you a deeper review of it in due course when I'm finished the book. Then please follow me, subscribe and follow me, and then you won't miss the review. But I'm going to leave it at that for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.